The next 9/11 is not going to be 19 losers in airplanes with box cutters. It is going to be a comprehensive attack across the entire nation where civilians in their own towns could be fighting for their own lives. All of those Israeli towns that were attacked had no fighting chance because the people who had the guns were the government. The civilians in their homes, the only option they had were to lock their doors. Their doors were kicked in. They were murdered in their own beds. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Prepared. Let's talk about the case in point of how the events of right now, today, could be the catalyst for the next 9/11. I want to talk about that and more. You guys might notice I'm in my living room right now because I have this massive scar across my neck because I got surgery. I want to talk a little bit about that because a lot of guys, as I talked about it on my social media feeds, were telling me, hey, they're going through the same issues. You know, I have a lot of experience in hurting myself in the military, especially when it comes to my neck. You know, C5 through C7, the base of the spine, is where most guys wind up hurting themselves in the military, especially in airborne operations. I got this nifty helmet here. This helmet with NVGs, all the accessories, is over 5 pounds. Ironically, that's about the weight of a pro NFL football helmet. They've gotten better. The technology has gotten a lot better. When I was in the military, actually doing operations with very heavy night vision goggles, we were using steel plates that we mounted and bolted in the back of our Kevlar helmets to balance that weight, and 7-8 pounds on top of our heads. One of the reasons I started having these difficult issues is because of our standard operating procedures in military freefall operations, where we would have to deploy our chutes, turn our head sideways, which I can't even pretend to do right now, turn our head sideways and look at our chute deploying over our right shoulder while we went from terminal velocity to 0, while our chute deployed. And that would yank our neck down. Every single time that happened, I would be in excruciating pain because I was pinching a nerve. Long story short, I completely impinged a nerve and winded up having my entire right arm numb, right hand numb, left foot numb, and being in excruciating pain. Big shout out to Dr. Edwards and his staff at Utah Valley, the Intermountain system of hospitals. I've been to a lot of hospitals and I've never been to one so squared away. The staff, the nurses, the surgeons, everybody there was super squared away. Thank you so much for that. 4 weeks out of the fight, got to take a knee, drink water, got to rest and recover. But honestly, I feel a lot better than I did because of this. If you're having these type of neck issues, please look into it. Guys, it progressively gets worse. It doesn't get any better. And if you served in the military or you did anything with your neck over a period of time, you need to get it looked at because it's something that can affect your health. We'll get past that. I want to say a big shout out to Montana Knife Company for giving me this shirt. I don't know if they sent me this shirt because I got cut. I didn't get cut with a Montana knife. I don't think the surgeon used a Montana knife. But if you're a blood brother, you get this cool shirt. I did cut myself with their, I almost said stupid knives. They're the best knives made. But Montana Knife is a partner of ours. And if it wasn't for their knives and they're made in America, morals and ethics, all the things they stand for, we would partner with them. And I think we have one of the best knives on the market that's a partnered knife between Fieldcraft Survival and Montana Knife Company. But check them out, montanaknifecompany.com. So let's talk about this thing that's going, when I was in the hospital bed, this is how crazy this was. When I was in the hospital bed, one, I was doped up on everything that you can give somebody for pain because I had a delay in emergency surgery because the surgeon couldn't see me till the following day. I had the little monitor, which is a remote control, that had the audible output right next to my head, and everything that was going down with Israel was going down. And so I was listening to that feed in a lucid dreaming state and listening to all of the atrocities that were taking place with Hamas. And I was listening to the back and forth between rivals, the Palestinian position, the Israeli position, and I don't want to get into that. But I want to make a case in point for what I think is potentially going to be the next September 11th of 2001. I mean, I was a 20-year-old sergeant in the U.S. Army at the time, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Just a couple of events, including 19 terrorists who were foreign students getting academic training and flying airplanes, including virtual simulators, that used box cutters. Guys, they didn't use machine guns. They didn't use suicide vests. They used box cutters. They had the will, the motivation, and they winded up killing over 3,000 Americans in one day. So when I look at this situation in Israel, let's focus on the facts. 800 to 1,000 is the estimate of Hamas terrorists out of the Gaza Strip, winded up deploying out into a very comprehensive and strategic battle plan and attacking specific targets, including, they don't know if this is if this is deliberate, because the concert actually, the geo coordinates of the concert were classified. They didn't put it out. I shouldn't say classified. They just didn't advertise it. And they wound up doing in the middle of the desert near where these Hamas paragliders were flying, looking for targets of opportunity. They wound up flying into this concert and killing over 270 people, and that death toll is going to rise. They raped, murdered, took hostage, killed elderly, beheaded babies, murdered and massacred human beings. This is not a war of retaliation. This is a war of terrorists using their techniques to rape, pillage, and horrify the Israeli people, to put them on their back and keep them on their back because they want to take away their spirit. They think they could break the will and the spirit of the Israelis. The Israelis have decided they're going to go to full-scale war. So that 800 to 1,000 right now, we have over 1,000 Israelis that were killed. We have right now over 700 Palestinians that were killed, some of which are civilians, because they are going into the Gaza Strip and they're waging war. And I ask a lot of Americans that have talked to me about this over the last couple days, what would you do? What would you do if in your small town or your big city in America, terrorists came into your home and they raped, murdered, and beheaded your community? What would you do? Well, I know what you do, because you're an American. You would pick up arms like I did after September 11th of 2001, and I would go to war. I would seek vengeance going after those, seek justice going after those that harmed our citizens. And that's exactly what's taking place now. So the difficult thing right now, as we understand it, is we are in a position as Americans to support our coalition partners. We're doing that all over the world, by the way. Now, one of the reasons I think this is potentially leading into another 9/11 is because of how complacent we are as a society. My team was on the ground in Del Rio, Texas, reporting the facts from the ground. The ground truth is very different than the national media perspective. And that's the whole reason, as a show prepared, both my producer, John, and me wanted to get out in the field and do this for real. It's one of the reasons why we're going to San Francisco to talk about the fentanyl crisis. While we want to go to South Korea, we want to go to Iraq, we want to potentially go to Israel and talk about the facts that are happening from the ground truth perspective. You know what the ground truth is? We are in a national security dilemma where we have tens and hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border and we don't know who they are. Now, Mike, why would this lead to September 11th? Well, because we weren't paying attention on September 11th. We are distracted by things going on in the world. Our resources were very scarce at home because our number one focus, our focal points, were counterterrorism outside of the borders of our country. Now what happens when you have Mauritanians, Venezuelans, name the country, because the guys on the ground, and me a couple of weeks prior to that with Sheriff Mark Lamb in Pinal County, saw the countless numbers of foreign citizens that were on the ground that were being released into our country with 2 to 5 year waiting list, where they were said, hey, report back to us in 5 years. What? 5 years? Yes, 5 years. So if you're a bad guy and you're an intelligent bad guy and you cooperate with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, you know all the countries that don't want us to exist as a nation, terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, like Hamas. How would you play this? Well, you would create distrust in the government. You would make the people believe that their government isn't trustworthy. You would create discourse between the people and political divisiveness between those people. And you would stretch their resources thin. You would have them spend hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine, billions of dollars in Israel, Iraq, Afghanistan, name the country, And then what are you left with? Well, you're not left with keeping your eye on the ball. The number one priority for Americans should be national security at home. And I have a feeling, based on all the pieces of information that I've been exposed to by being there on the ground, by all the intelligent people reporting the intelligence, open source and closed source to me, that this potentially is a serious issue that's going to come to bear. It's leading to a tipping point. I think that tipping point personally is the 2024 elections. I think if we get more involved with Israel, we will. That will be 100% an investment that the American people will have no choice in. And then where does that lead us? It leads us to being more unsafe, left in a position where we are very scarce on our resources, and the abundance of what we are known to have is being stretched all over the world, focused on global campaigns and not focused on American issues. And then where does that leave us? Well, I don't know, record-breaking issues, fentanyl overdoses, drug overdoses, suicide, crime, you name it. An organization that was very popular a couple years ago in civil unrest came out today supporting the Palestinians. I saw videos from New York City where young men were showing videos of innocent Israeli people being murdered and massacred, and they were bragging about it in New York, in the middle of Times Square. Like, that is the position we live in this country. Like, it's great to have First Amendment rights, constitutional rights, to be able to do all these things. But to me, it is disgusting when you see the divided nation that we are, when people don't understand the complexities of the issues and they can't separate terrorism from a social issue that people are dealing with throughout history, throughout time. I mean, terrorists are terrorists, guys. Hamas is ISIS. ISIS is Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was responsible for murdering 3,000 human beings on 9/11, which propelled us into the global war on terror. You think our coalition partners have trust in us? On the day that we pulled out of Afghanistan, we abandoned coalition partners. So you think that Biden's going to lead us? He's going to lead the coalition to campaign with us anywhere in the world? He's not. So what does that mean for us? Well, we're going to be further segregated and separated and more isolated from the world. The dollar, partnerships, agreements, deals, the list goes on. Our foreign policy is a disaster. Biden, by the time you hear this, has already spoken. I hope he mumbled through the talking points. But where is that going to lead us? Into further proxy wars that are going to end us up in another September 11th. I don't want that to happen to us. One of the things, lastly, that I'll say is I did see a couple posts on social media where people were talking about, just like in Ukraine, where people were handing out weapons and munitions to defend one's life. Guys, this is why we campaign for Second Amendment rights so strongly. This is not about sport shooting or hunting. This is about you being a superpower because you have the inherent right to protect yourself, your family, and your community, not just from radical people who are conducting acts of violence against you, but terrorists and radical governments. If you're advocating for anything other than protecting your Second Amendment rights, you're advocating that you're basically handing over all your security to the government. The government is not going to save you. All of those Israeli towns that were attacked, I think there were 17 total that were attacked strategically, had no fighting chance because the people who had the guns were the government. The civilians in their homes, the only option they had were to lock their doors. Their doors were kicked in. They were murdered in their own beds. You have the ability to stand up for your rights, but also you have the ability to vote. I hear a lot of people talking about where it's time to go to war. No, it's not time to go to war. It's time to vote in intelligently the right people who are going to campaign for change and maintain the sanctity and sovereignty of our specific rights that are inherent to us. If this does happen, the next 9/11 is not going to be 19 losers in airplanes with box cutters. It is going to be a comprehensive attack across the entire nation where civilians in their own towns could be fighting for their own lives. That's why it's important to vote the right people in, to get involved in local and federal politics, and understand how this evolves. Guys, 2024, we're rolling into it hot and heavy. I will say I'm praying for the people of Israel. That whole circumstance is a nightmare, is a mess. Many people's families were affected. I mean, when you have 700 plus Israelis, the majority of them women and children who were murdered, that's disgusting. But how do we pick up our country and our nation at the same time? We can't juggle all this at once. A lot of politicians will tell you they can do all of this at once. It's impossible. We're not going to be able to get it done that way. We have to focus on the priorities, and the priorities should be this country, this nation, its citizens, and then worry about everything else, secondary and tertiary. All right, lastly, let's talk about fear-mongering. We get a lot of people saying, oh, you're fear-mongering because this isn't going to happen in real time. I have a fear that a lot of Americans are living with ego and arrogance. I talk about it in my book, In Prepared, specifically why a lot of people disassociate themselves with reality. Because where you're at, where I'm at in Provo, Utah, very comfortable. It's easy to be complacent. But when you look at the world around you and the things that are potentially going to affect you, these things can impact all your lives, all your security. Did those Israeli villages, those Israeli towns outside of the Gaza Strip think they were going to be affected? I saw a 15-year-old boy being interviewed on the news, and he said when he first saw the videos in his own hometown of people being attacked, he laughed because he thought it was a joke. He saw it on TikTok, by the way, and he thought it was a joke. It's not a joke, because these things could turn our worlds upside down because we're not paying attention. I'm simply asking that you pay attention, and that is all. Guys, we're starting Friday Afternoon Club at Fieldcraft HQ every single Friday to do more hands-on training. We teach responsible citizen training on Wednesday for free to the public. We're asking all of you guys come in because we're teaching situational awareness, first aid, all the things, and trying to affect our local communities, both in Phoenix, Arizona, Colorado soon, and also Provo, Utah. If you're interested, check it out at fieldcraftsurvival.com. I appreciate all you guys' support, and I'm headed off into the underground. If it wasn't for the Patreons who support this channel, I wouldn't be able to fund this and do all the things that we do. I'm going to do a piece for the underground right after this on patreon.com/Mike Glover. You can see all the links down below. Till next time, peace out, guys.